These days, it's unheard of for an actor to be signed for 10 years. Well, that's what happened to Kurt Russell after he appeared in the Elvis Presley movie It Happened at the World's Fair. He played the little kid that kicks Elvis Presley in the shins. The story goes that Walt Disney made the signing himself, and over the next decade, Kurt starred in a raft of movies, including Original Family Band, which also starred Goldie Hawn. But his acting career may never have taken off if it wasn't for an injury. You see, Kurt wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and pursue a career in baseball. That was until a shoulder tear cut it short and he returned to acting. One of his first ever adult roles was as the king himself in the telemovie Elvis. One of Kurt's greatest successes was Escape from New York, playing Snake Plissken. The character was so popular, he's gone on to feature in his own comic book series.
He's a character who's kind of incorruptible because he has no agenda. He doesn't care about you or me or anything else. Kind of a unique character. He's not very socially redeemed.
Escape from New York was directed by John Carpenter. The pair have actually teamed up for 5 movies, including Big Trouble in Little China, a kung fu comedy in which Kurt plays a truck driver caught in the middle of a supernatural battle. The movie was actually a flop when it was released in 1986, but went on to gain a loyal cult following. And I've got to tell you, this video got plenty of runs in the Tobin household in the 80s. As Jack Burton, Kurt is in his element, playing the self-deprecating hero with a quick wit. But he hasn't always been the tough guy. He also explored his serious side in the films Silkwood and Swing Shift. While on the set of Swing Shift, he hooked up with Goldie Hawn, and they've been together ever since. They've got a son together, and Kurt's acted as the father to Goldie's daughter, Kate Hudson. He even walked her down the aisle at her wedding. And while he's been with Goldie a long time, they've never felt the need to get married.
Well, I consider myself married, don't you?
Yeah, we don't really... The only time we ever really think about it is when people ask us, and unfortunately we don't have any great answer other than we don't seem to care much about it.
Elvis has made many appearances in his career. Kurt made his film debut kicking the man himself. He played him in John Carpenter's film titled Elvis. He was the voice of Elvis in Forrest Gump, and in 3,000 Miles to Graceland, he dressed up as Elvis alongside Kevin Costner and Christian Slater to pull off a heist during an Elvis convention. His love interest is played by Courtney Cox, and unsurprisingly, she was one of the reasons Kurt was willing to don those blue suede shoes once again.
I liked the interplay that took place with Courtney's character and with David Kaye's character, the little boy. I liked the strange relationship he had with his prison mate, Murphy, who Kevin plays. And I liked the idea of this movie.
So that's what Kurt liked. But why was Kevin Costner so keen to get Kurt to co-star with him on this film?
Well, I really wanted Kurt to be in the movie, so that was a real coup for the movie and for me personally to have him around, because he's a good guy. He's a really good actor, but he's even a better guy.
After kicking his career off as a child star with Disney, Kurt made a return to the children's powerhouse 30 years later with Sky High. He played superhero Captain Stronghold, whose teenage son is expected to follow in his footsteps. Russell loved the concept, but felt the tone of the initial script wasn't quite right. So he rolled up his sleeves and got writing, determined to get the family dynamic just right.
I've always liked the dynamic between the children and parents who sort of really don't understand what they're going through, but have gone through it themselves, so they sort of do. And the specific of, like the football father who was a really good football player, who's really a known hero in that area of their, the town or whatever, and his son now comes up and he's expected to be, by this father, as good. And when you put it on the superhero level, to me it has the added fun of being able to see all what these kids can do.
So, once you had the script right, it was all about getting the atmosphere on set right.
I suppose that when you're doing something that's fun and adventurous, which this is, I think you have to feel like you're having fun and you're having an adventure. And certainly so far I do.
Once a child actor himself, Kurt then went on to work with one of the greatest child stars of this generation, Dakota Fanning. The two worked together in Dreamer, an inspirational tale of a racehorse given a second chance. Many consider the movie to be a kids' flick, but Kurt disagrees.
It's an adult film. It's not geared towards children. It's geared at adults and people, young people as well. So I think what makes this film special, after having seen it a number of times with audiences, is it resonates, it sticks with you, because I think for children, they begin to understand things about their parents that perhaps they didn't, and because we don't talk down to them.
On set, Kurt and Dakota found they had a lot in common and formed a strong friendship.
What's nice about Dakota is that she's been able to work with good directors who, for the most part, have not asked her to behave in a way that a lot of other young actors are asked to behave. She also had the good sense and acumen to, when asked to do that in the past, played stupid. You know, I don't know what you mean. I know that because when I was a kid, that was part of what my technique was because we were asked to do some of these things that were just insane. And we laughed about it, and we both said, you know, why do they want you to do that?
Kurt also showed his sensitive side off-screen when he bought Dakota Fanning her own horse after filming finished.
She's an 11-year-old girl, and it's a big commitment for an 11-year-old to have a horse. So I went to her mom and dad, who, by the way, are spectacular people, and I said, you know, what she really wants is a horse. And they said, yeah, I know, but you know. So we talked about it, and a week later they came back and said, okay, if you want to do that, we're okay with that, and because it's kind of a family commitment too. So I started looking, and it took me a while, but I got her a Palomino, and because she had hinted around to some of the other people on the set, and she dropped some things like, if I had a Palomino, I'd name it Goldie. And so once I heard that, I said, well, I'm not gonna not do that.
He may be a softie, but he still loves a bit of action. In 2006, he starred in Poseidon, a remake of the 1970s action-adventure movie, The Poseidon Adventure. Now, it was the action, as well as the chance to work with legendary filmmaker Wolfgang Petersen, that got him interested.
There was an opportunity to work with Wolfgang in a picture that was going to have, I think, an extreme amount of intensity to it. So that was why I got involved. I wasn't that interested in the character, to tell you the truth. It was just a guy, and the truth of the matter is that we don't spend a great deal of time in this movie talking about who these people are. You just watch them behave, and you begin to understand who they are through their behavior. So that's kind of the different aspect of it.
One of the things this movie does is you get to know them in a very different way, and almost a silent way. You begin to guess at who they are, as opposed to being told by them who they are. And my hope is that an audience can begin to click into that and relate to these people. And I think, for my taste, I think one of the places where they're going to begin to latch on to who they are is inside that air conditioning vent, because it gets real close in there.
Kurt did most of his own stunts on the film, and he paid the price, contracting pneumonia after the filming of extensive underwater sequences. Kurt got so disoriented during one scene that he accidentally hit Josh Lucas in the head with a torch. Ouch.
Trying to behave the character in a certain situation while you're, really basically also just concerned about holding your breath and getting to the place where you've got to get to on the set. What we found is the difficulty is not having a mask. When you have a mask on, it's psychologically, you can see where you're going, you can see about how long it's going to take you, and you sort of feel pretty comfortable with that. When you take the mask off, your visibility is cut so greatly that psychologically you no longer know how far you have to go to get to your destination, and now you begin to wonder if you have enough breath, and we've got some tops above us, so you got to get there.
Never one to sit on the sidelines, Kurt threw himself into the filmmaking process and really enjoyed collaborating with director Wolfgang Petersen on the set.
The process of working together has been very good. We've whittled things down a lot. We've talked some things out and come up with what Wolfgang felt was better seen than originally, if we just let it lay the way it was many times. And so that's the process of making movies. That's what you do when you make movies. You try to get in a room and say, well, what about this, or what about that, or what if we did this? Gee, would this would this be better? Does that really work? You know, that's literally the process that you go through to try to make any movie work.
Another director Kurt has admired is Quentin Tarantino. So when Quentin asked Kurt to play stuntman Mike in Death Proof, of course, he said yes.
As Quentin said to me, he said, I'd like for you to add this to your rogues gallery of characters. And I said, boy, I'd like to do that. I've been very fortunate with the directors that I've been able to work with over the years. And in all honesty, never topped by this. This has been a truly great experience.
With Kurt back in the saddle as an action star, the others on set just sat back and learnt from the master.
He's had a really strong and long career, but it really is striking what he's doing in this role, and it's really fun to watch it.
I actually got to make fun of Kurt Russell, which is very strange for me. Kurt Russell's been one of my heroes since childhood. The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time, as is Escape from New York and Breakdown and so many others. But The Thing, for me, was one of the reasons I got into directing. And so to be sitting there at a bar and just making fun of him and like talking about how dated he is and making fun of his hair was pretty strange. And I was really mad. I was actually scared he was going to punch me after the take. And after the first take, he kind of threw some nachos at me. And I had to apologize to him, but he was laughing about it. And I've had such a fun time working with him.
He's played some of cinema's biggest heroes, some pretty intimidating bad guys, and shown us his softer side. But if you ask me, Kurt Russell is at his best, busting into a scene and delivering a cracking one-liner. Stay tuned to Star Picks for all the movies you know and the actors you love. Broadcast in glorious high definition with 5.1 surround sound where available. For more of the best in entertainment news, check out your Movie Network channels. It's altogether better, on screen and at mnc.tv.